Hey guys, Walter Fedczuk here to tell you that Unicorn.com may be the world's premier esports betting site, but they're also your best bet for keeping up with all the esports you love. With their site's newest update, they've reinvented their Live Now system and created a TV guide style layout to find out when your favorite teams will be playing next. And if that isn't simple enough, they've even added a search bar to help filter it down even further. And you know, even if you aren't a gambling fan, Unicorn's newest update is a must-have for any esports fan. And you might even discover your favorite new writer in their news section. We've got my man Drowlin with some excellent CSGO content, and you can find some fantastic articles from my lovely co-host, Chase Wassenar, as well. So check out the new layout at Unicorn.com, because there are few places where you can stay up to date on all your favorite esports, and Unicorn can help. Unicorn.com. Welcome to the new Sportsbook.
Hello Internet, my name is Walter Ceades Fedczuk, and I am your Guess the Lines World Heavyweight Champion. And welcome to our Week 6 episode of the 2017 Summer Split EULCS Guess the Lines with No Lines episode. Yes, once again, we are here to talk about Europe and all of their spectacular failings coming out of Rift Rivals. And speaking of failings, I think it's only fair to bring up her greatest crusader, my friend and co-host, Chase, RedShirtKing Wassenar. Chase, you look a little pale there, buddy. How's it going?
Well, you know, it's not great. I'm not gonna pretend that it was a fun Rift Rivals event to watch for me. Obviously, we had our episode, talked a lot of trash. Europe did not back me up on that.
They did not.
So that's unfortunate. I think it's safe to say. You know, I saw your video on your Glory of North America. Congratulations, you get all your shots. And a little self-indulgent, but you know, I get where you're coming from. I think that you deserve the opportunity to trash talk, and if you want to take out on me that I happen to like the numbers, like that's, I guess, fine. You know, you do you, man. But I just want to say to the European fans, we're going to get through this. We're not usually the region that has to take a step back to North America, but it's so much better to have this wake-up call now than in the World's group stage. This is something that I think G2 has suffered from in the past, where they did so well in the region, they hadn't figured out where the flaws in their system were, and by the time they got to an international competition, those flaws were heavily exploited. I think that when you lose in the decisive way that they did, and let's be clear, North America won 71% of their matches. It was a very decisive victory. But when you lose like that, the only thing you have is the understanding that we need to look inwards and figure out what's wrong with our meta, and whether you were one of the 3 teams on the stage or the 7 teams watching from home. We now have the lessons about what works and what doesn't, and what people were getting away with that you're not going to be able to get away with in international competition. And I think that that is overall a good thing. We will learn from this, we will grow from this, and Europe will once again fight their way up to the standards to which we hold themselves. But for now, North America is the better region, and there's no counter argument to be made. So you enjoy your American flag. You've earned it.
Well, hold on a second, because I want to say something to the European fans. I know in the video it was a little much. I was kind of aggressive, and I'm not going to apologize for that. I think it's well deserved. North America did work, but if you listen, I talked about how a flag didn't show up. Well, a flag did show up, and I just want to take a moment and take off the American flag here real quick, and I have to offer something to European fans. I want to suggest you all you move to a certain country, and we're gonna call that country Denmark, because I'm gonna offer I'm going to offer the country of Denmark one opportunity to become the 51st state in these United States of America. I think it's a great offer. After you gave us such wonderful Native American sons like Soren Björksen and Dennis Svenskar and whatever his last name is. But giving us these two native sons, I think we really need to offer you that. So to my European friends and to my friends in Denmark, go ahead. The offer's on paper. It'll be sent to your prime minister. Go ahead and sign on the dotted line and welcome as the 51st state of these United States of America. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it, and that we kind of wanted to reward you guys for what you did.
I love that you didn't give that credit to Jensen, because then Cloud9 would have one more import slot. So you decided, like, oh yeah, Jensen's, he's still from Denmark. If you're gonna give Denmark talent,
Chase, what does this shirt read? I can't read it. What does this say?
You know what, man?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Is what it is.
I gave Cloud9 enough credit on the Rift Rivals podcast. But Chase, talking about credit, which European team underperformed the most at Rift Rivals?
I mean, Fnatic. And I don't think it's close. I think we knew that G2 was flawed going into it. They had battled their way after week 5 to a whole 500 win-loss record. Like, this is a team that has issues, especially in this meta. It's something I wrote an article for on Unicorn, just the draft problems that they had and how they were being limited because we had such clear problems in how the team was working and how they rely on Trick to open up so much more of the map and open so many more opportunities for them. I think that's still the case. I think that's still the reason why G2 is struggling in this regard. I will say that Fnatic has no such excuse. That's where you look at it and go, well, this was a tournament that was decided by teams winning the early game and being able to snowball those advantages. I think it was something like 17 of the, the vast majority of the matches. I think all but 2 went in North America's favor in the early game. I think it was like 19 of the 21 games were the North American team up at 20 minutes.
Right.
And you can't really defend Fnatic for that, because Fnatic was, according to the numbers, the best early game team in the world compared to the rest of their region. They had a 1,245 goal differential lead on average at 15 minutes heading into this event. That's just such a massive drop-off. And you can point to individual problems that stand out. People have made a lot of the fact that, like, oh, they only got 2 dragons the entire tournament. Well, you're not going to get a lot of dragons when you're losing, and they spend most of the tournament losing, so they didn't have a lot of pressure to get a lot of dragons. But you have to ask, like, why weren't their lanes getting ahead? And I think that there are easy things you can point to. I think that Reckless holding on to the Kennen pick on patch 7.13 was a bad decision. When you don't have the Runen stacks anymore, 80 carry Kennen just does not work out. It doesn't have the burst damage. It doesn't have that ability. But in general, I think relying on low attack range champions is a problem in these kinds of matchups, because if the enemy laner knows what they're doing, they're going to win the early game. And when your best player isn't winning early, well, now it comes down to, can Broxa find those advantages? And in this situation, I felt like Broxa was mostly out-jungled. I thought that Svenskaren punished him heavily with invades. I think Mike Young punished him very heavily with invades. Mike Young looked amazing this tournament. We'll get to more of him on tomorrow's episode. But Ceades and Caps were not doing enough on their own, and they weren't winning those 2v2s when Broxa was there. And they just were behind on vision. They were behind on rotations. They were behind in everything that we expect Fnatic to be able to do. And what that tells me is we have not in Europe built up the early game strengths that North America has. It looks very pretty when you look back at Europe's footage from weeks 1 through 5 compared to North America. The first 15 minutes of North America feel kind of sloppy and disjointed and go back and forth, and they can sometimes snowball off things. But if you look at Europe, it was very clean, it was crisp, the towers were being taken down, and the right teams were winning the right team fights at the right moments. But the problem that we didn't recognize because of that cleanness is that they were getting away with a lot. There were a lot of shortcuts being taken because teams were not pressuring other teams in the early game, because teams mostly had time to scale. Look, the second best early game team in Europe is the Ninjas in Pajamas, right? Like, it's not like good teams were going out and taking these champions that could snowball the early game. You know, the H2K hasn't been as good as they've been in recent years. Most of Europe has not done a great job of that. So, yeah, they were getting to the mid game without any messy fights, but that's because there weren't all that many fights, because they weren't fighting, because they were just having this super safe laning phase. And hey, it turns out that being a super safe and super clean in theory doesn't matter when in practice the other side is taking you to the mud and you have no idea how to fight there. You don't have any backup plan.
Which is why it makes sense that Unicorns of Love was Europe's representative in the finals, because they, out of the 3 teams they sent, are a team that is very skirmish heavy. Now, granted, it's later into the game. It's not this 10 minutes like North America was really doing. It's not a lot of like constant invades into the mid lane, which that was what stuck out to me after days 1 and 2 was Europe just seemed completely caught off guard that a jungler and a support would ever go into the mid lane. Like, why are you here? What are you doing? Their warding patterns were not conducive for that. It took them a while to adjust to which angles that the North American junglers and supports were coming from, and pushing their vision a little bit further out. And it was the first 2 days, it was just, support roaming up into the mid lane and getting a pick here, and jungle roaming into the mid lane. And North America seemed very mid lane focused in their assault against all of these teams. And I know I asked Riot Spellsy if they had a jungle proximity statistic for mid lane, and it came out to that for the regular season, NA is at 22.2% jungle proximity with the mid laner. Europe's at 20.4%. So it doesn't look like there's a huge difference there, but it is enough of a difference that it does show that North America tends to focus a little bit more on their mid laners, and not just getting them ahead, but just pressuring that mid lane, because we always talk about if that mid tower goes down, that opens up a hell of a lot of the map. That opens up more entranceways into the enemy jungle, and I think that North America really tried to prioritize that, especially once they got the first tower, where Europe, you could tell they wanted the side lane towers down first so they could set up split pushing and set up pressure that way, and then go into the mid lane. Where North America was like, we're going to take the bot tower, we're going to take the mid tower, and then we're going to worry about the top tower. We're going to take the top tower, then take the mid tower, then take the bot tower. That was kind of their focus in which way they wanted to rotate their lanes around. So that was what stood out to me, and Europe just didn't seem prepared for it.
Well, you nailed it with the support comment, because the support is the thing. Like the jungle-wise, I don't think there was a massive difference necessarily. Maybe less aggressive early on, but like proximity-wise, I didn't think it was that different. I think the big difference is that Europe's supports have mostly been staying in lane this way. When you think of Ceades, you do not think of him as a roaming support.
No.
He's someone that has to give Reckless a lot of credit, help in the early game, because Reckless as a laner, when you have low attack range, you need help to handle those kinds of things. Hylissang has been helping Samix a little bit more because he's been hyperscaling and those kind of compositions need it. Mithy just does not roam on his own anymore. There's a reason he was one of 2 people that never got killed solo of the supports of this tournament. He was always with his laner, and that's fine in theory, but in practice what ends up happening is they don't have that advantage when those fights happen. There was 3v2 or 3-on-1 if their vision wasn't good enough, and they just were completely caught off guard by it. I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. I think that's ultimately the lesson that Europe needs to learn here, which is that you can't... There's a risk in playing safe. I guess that's one of those things. It's an opportunity cost is a better way to think about it. When you're playing safe in lane and you're not roaming your support, you're not taking those chances, well, someone else can. And at this tournament, someone else did, and it ended very poorly for us. So I think that in general, I want to see Europe come out this week, especially the top teams, and try to be more proactive, try to set the pace, try to really push that early aggression. Let's see some more interesting and more risky early game play, because we need to see these teams do more than just be talented. We need to see them step up and really make a leap that shows that they learned from this event. Whether you were playing or watching at it, we need to have learned from it, and we need to continue to learn and improve from it. From now until the end of the split, if Europe is going to become the region that, by all accounts, they should be. So I hope they get there. I'm certainly going to be excited to see how this week goes, because I think this is a week that's going to show whether or not teams have really learned those lessons, or whether they're kind of stuck in, well, but we don't need to quite yet, because we're still really good where we are in our own region. So that's going to be interesting to watch.
I know we talked about Fnatic and Unicorns of Love at pretty good lengths. Do you have anything you want to say about G2? Did anything stick out about them for you, or was this just kind of, G2 standard summer split play?
I mean, G2 as of right now don't look very good at League of Legends. I don't know. It's unfortunate. I think that this is what happens when you have a team that runs so extremely through Trick. That's clearly something that is costing them and is going to continue to cost them, is that they just don't have an answer as to when Trick can't get ahead. That he just does not seem very comfortable in this meta. It's going to be a problem for them moving forward until they come up with some answer as to how they can best use him. And Nunu is not the answer, guys, by the way. I know that's something that they're going to look into. I would bet dollars to donuts we see Nunu again before the end of the split from him, but it's not ideal, I think, where they are right now. But you know what is ideal, Walter? The EU lines are up. So we do get to talk about gambling lines today. Hope you're excited, as I am, to go on the fly like we usually do.
Yeah! Wow, you just caught me off guard. That very rarely does Chase get to catch me off guard. But perfect. I'm glad. Yes. I get to carry over an excellent week here into our actual competition.
Well, was it an excellent week? Because when you look at the week 5 smart money bets, not sure excellent is the term.
What was last week? Last week wasn't week 5. Last week was Rift Rivals. But no, Chase is correct. Week 5 did not pan out very well for us with our smart money bets. We went 0-3 because Splyce wasn't as good as Chase thought they were, and Vitality was better than either of us thought they were. So we lost all 3 of our bets, which is okay. We're back in the negative now with Europe, but it's only 22. It's only minus 22. Unicorns, dollars, ruples, whatever. And we could easily make that back up. So let's get into it. Let's start with our very first match of the week. The Ninjas in Pajamas versus Vitality. Chase, looking back all the way at week 5, now 2 weeks ago, was that win more about Vitality being good, or was it that we thought Roccat was better than they actually were?
I think Vitality's better than we thought they were. I got to give them credit. I think one of the things that I had noticed as a trend, especially the couple weeks prior to this, was Nuke Duck. Nuke Duck has started to play much better in lane. He was getting solo kills on people like Caps, even in losing efforts. Fabiven was someone I think he particularly exploited in their series against H2K. So he is evolving now into the kind of talent that we've been told that he is for a long time. Obviously, in Season 3, he was great on Lemon Dogs, but then his reputation kind of superseded what we were actually seeing on the Rift. The things we heard about, oh yeah, well in scrims he's a monster, on solo queue he's a god, but it wasn't translating. Well, now it's translating. And I think that in general, he's always been very good at mid lane AD carry style champions. That's something he's always excelled at. I think he's very good at that kind of poke mechanic. He's very good at using that CS and really pushing out his lane accordingly. And what we saw the last time the Vitality played was Kog'Maw and Quirky, both of which were absolutely dominant. And I think that that's a very good sign for Vitality moving forward, is that we're starting to see an identity for them. We're playing around Nuke Duck as our main carry. We're going to send Joko to that lane, and that's where we're going to try to get our first advantage and snowball that. And once that's done, we're going to focus on Cabashard. And we're going to tell Cabashard, hey, you're our star top laner, and we need you to be able to come in on our teleports, on our global plays when we need you. So let's get you in a comfortable place. And we'll just tell Steelbuck and Vander, like, you're not the main carries on this team right now, because they are right now, I think, playing like the weakest part of this team, outside of maybe Joko, which you can make a good case for. I think that Steelback and Vander are not playing to the level we would expect from them. They're not terrible, but they're not great right now. So I think that focus on getting the solo laners ahead, playing through them, having that be what dictates the team fights and the way that they want to play the game, I think is a great sign from them. I still think their macro play could use a little bit more coordination. They gave up more towers than they needed to in this series. They just gave up a little bit more advantages than was necessary. But the good news for them is they're playing the Ninjas in Pajamas. And the Ninjas in Pajamas are not particularly great at League of Legends right now. I know they took the map off of Unicorns of Love in game 1. Nagne, when he does well, can look very good. It's the problem is that Nagne has not looked like that guy all that consistently. I like his Corki. Yeah. His Corki's fun. I'm not sure how I feel about the rest of what he's doing. I thought that his Syndra and his blah blah blah. He did not look very good against some serious monkeys. I think that's very safe to say. And when Cosq is outplaying you in lane, that's a really bad sign.
Yes.
So I think that they have problems on that end. They have the Prophet only knows how to split push problem, which is either a does Prophet speak English well enough problem, or does Prophet trust his teammates in any way, shape, or form problem, depending on who you ask. Neither one of those, I think, is a great sign. I don't feel good about either one of those answers.
You should probably trust Nagne. I would suggest trusting Nagne.
Yeah, but I trust Nukeduck more. So I think that ultimately this is going to be a series that Vitality should be able to take pretty cleanly. I like them a lot here. In fact, I like them at -240. I think that they should be significant favorites.
Well, Chase, you're right about one thing. I do want to say that it's kind of incredible that when Vitality does embrace the, like, hey, we have really strong laners, we should exploit that and let their strong laners dominate their opponents in one-on-one situations and set them up for that. It's kind of incredible how, like, that works. And Nukeduck and Cabashard have done a very good job when they can just be in one-on-one scenarios and when they can just duel their opponent and not have to worry about jungle pressure or anything like that. You said Vitality -240. I said Vitality -250. The actual line is Vitality -312. So we were both a little short of the money, you more so than I, so I'm going to be the one that gets the point here. This should be, like, interesting.
Where's NIP's upset line?
NIP is at +230.
Okay.
This should be a good, like, sports entertainment game. If you care about 3 maps is at +120. +120. The Vitality 2-0 +110.
See, the only thing that's keeping me from completely writing off this series is one we should bet on, because there's a good argument that when the only line that has value is betting on the 114 team, that you shouldn't bet on it. But Ninjas in Pajamas have a 59.5 early game rating right now. Vitality are the second lowest in the league at 35.6. Like, they are not a good early game team. Their solo laners scale up well, but they have been inconsistent in terms of, as a team, turning any meaningful kill into an objective into some sort of an early lead. So there's a chance here. Like, if we're going to believe that none of the teams in Europe are as bad as the teams we had in Europe last split, which I think is the case. I don't think that either one of these teams are as bad as Origin was, and I don't necessarily think that they're as bad as Giants were. If we believe that, Ninjas in Pajamas have to win sometime. I could see it happening. I want to see if we have more value. I think that it's not a bet that I would want to make lightly, especially after how last week went for us. But it's in play. I think that Ninjas in Pajamas could just be a nice matchup here.
I don't agree with that, but let's see where the rest of the value shows up. Our second series of the week, Roccat versus H2K.
Yeah.
Both teams are kind of like disappointing.
I mean, H2K 2-0'd.
I know they 2-0'd Misfits, but it didn't feel like. I don't know.
It was ugly. It was really ugly.
Yeah. I don't know. Talk to me about H2K. Talk to me about H2K. What did you see after, them coming out of that series with Misfits? That felt like, a grinded out 9-12 game in American football. Like, that didn't feel like a overwhelming 2-0 victory for the stronger team. That felt like gritty, grimy, let's just get out of here with the win.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the best way to describe it right now. I think Oduamne deserves more credit than the rest of his teammates for how well he performed. I thought his Galio was very good. I thought his Camille was excellent. I thought that was a very nice flex pick from them, funnily enough. I don't think a lot of people expect Camille to be a thing anymore in the top lane. We do not see her picked up there very often. It was one of the things I was actually looking forward to at Rift Rivals was, hey, look, Europe's playing Camille on the top lane, and they're really good at split pushing. This is the thing they might do, and it might be really good. And it wasn't, and it didn't, and it made me sad. But ultimately, he was the guy that certainly they felt comfortable enough playing around. He could be the initiator. He could really get a lot of damage around the map. And the fact that he was as confident as he was allowed them to get the towers that they needed to end up winning the game ultimately. But let's be clear, Misfits were winning game one for most of that game.
Yes.
And what we saw there is a Misfits problem that they've had in the past where they don't necessarily know how to close the way that they should. So really, this series is about H2K stealing a win while still behind in gold, might I add, in game one. And then in game two, just eking by largely because they managed to get 3 Infernal Drakes. Like, if those are 3 less important Drakes, I don't think the fights that were as close as they were at the time necessarily go in their favor. I don't think Jankos played a particularly great series. I don't think his Gragas looked that great at all. I think Forbidden has taken a step back from where we saw him last split. He went from someone who I thought was an all-pro mid laner last split to someone that right now would not be on my consideration list. And Nuclear and Che, congratulations. You can play Ashe and Braum, but not even all that well. It's not like we had a game like what we had with Double Lift and Rift Rivals, where every Ashe arrow was hitting and causing these amazing engages. Like, Nuclear's fine. Like, he's playing all right. But that's the problem with H2K right now, is that this is a team that's built on every single one of our individual players is better than you. That's how they win. They overpower people, and they snowball those advantages because they are so much better than their opponents. And against Misfits, I don't know that they were the better team at all. They get the win, and that probably means that at least for now they're the better team. But at the end of the split, I'm not... Like, if you played that series 10 times, I think it might have been a 5-5 series. I think if Misfits holds on to game one, mentally they're a little bit sharper for game two. Now, Misfits get blamed for losing game one, but are we going to give H2K as much credit for that? Like, that's kind of the argument I go back and forth on in my head. And I shouldn't have to be going back and forth about a team in H2K that was so dominant in the regular season last split and has so many talented pieces on paper. That's just not where I want to be with them.
Right.
Roccat...
Are we back to the dying dog analogy, Chase? Is it back?
No.
Is it time to take
No.
Old Yeller back out behind the shed again?
I wouldn't do that to this team. They're working hard, man. They're trying. I wish I need like a novelty like white flag here to wave. Like, this is... I mean, look, this is a team with growing pains. I think that one of the things that led me astray was how well they'd done. Thank you. I appreciate that. One of those things that we got excited by what they'd done so far in the season. They hadn't been blanked in any series heading up to this. They'd gotten at least one map against everybody. They had ways to find close victories. They had big victories where they have these great team fights that turn things around, like they did in that game 2 against Fnatic that somehow turned that series around. Like, it's not that Roccat is inept as a team. It's not that Roccat doesn't have any competence or any ability to really snowball some advantages and really show up when they're needed. It's just that they don't do it enough. And in this particular series, I mean, Betsy was just manhandled. It was just really bad. And Pride Stalker got out-jungled by Joko, which is just really bad. And you can't have both of those things and expect Roccat to still be relevant when the mid to late game rolls around, which they need to be if they're going to win those team fights that they're actually good at.
It's really bad when your support has the deepest champion pool on your team. Like, I mean, that he's good at. Like, Wadid's good.
Yeah, Wadid's good.
Wadid's good, and he's good at a variety of champions. Like, that's my problem that I'm having with Betsy is, like, what is he good at? He's good at Swain and Vladimir. And, like, that's it.
Well, here's the thing, though. Like, looking at that Game 1 lineup from Roccat, where was their hard CC on that composition? Like, you have Warwickle technically.
Kennen? Lulu?
Yeah, that's not ideal. It's not ideal, I think, is the way I'm going to put it. I think that composition was inherently flawed in terms of finding engages and turning team fights around in the mid-late game. That was a huge concern to me. Just drafting-wise, I think they're making some sloppy mistakes. But yeah, I mean, look, this is the team that we thought they might be heading into the season, right? This is a team that has clear issues and has young players that need to work their way back up. They need to get Pride Stalker competitively ready. It might be time to move on from Betsy. I like Betsy. I thank you for your service.
Yes.
Thank you for everything you did. But I think it's time to move on to someone with a higher ceiling. Because we know what Betsy is when he's good. He's good but not great. But Betsy, when he's bad, is not doing anything for you. Because there's no evidence that says that Betsy's going to come back and be some monster when he gets out of the current slump. He's a low ceiling and now low floor guy. And that's exactly the kind of talent you don't want on a roster, especially one like this. I don't know what players would be available if there's someone on the Challenger solo queue that they can go grab and get some reps here, because Roccat, let's face it, they're not going to the playoffs. They're probably good enough, even if they were to tank, if you will, and go grab that unexperienced Challenger mid laner. They still probably avoid relegations just because Ninjas and Pajamas are even worse. So start thinking about the future, Roccat. I know we have this conversation before, and then I end up seeing the roster the next season, and it's not ideal. But I'm going to believe in the system. I'm going to trust the process. And the process here says that Betsy's not doing enough to justify his spot on the team compared to the upside of the other types of people that you could bring in.
Right.
So as a fan, that's where I want to see this team go. I think that's probably the thing I'm most looking forward to seeing, because this series is not going to be fun.
No.
This is going to suck.
Where do you have the line for this series?
I have H2K minus 333.
I also had H2K at minus 333. It is H2K minus 435.
Okay.
Roccat is at plus 290.
I don't really have an argument against that.
I don't either. That's a line.
Yeah.
Moving
Well,
on.
congratulations to H2K for their bounce back week. I hope you're happy. I hope you're excited about it. This is going to be a nice bounce back week for you. I know you technically won, but this is when your super strong, better at every position play is really going to shine.
This better be like a 10,000 goals lead at 25 minutes out of H2K, or I seriously have some concerns about them going forward, and I think it might be time to it up. Moving on, Splyce versus G2. Chase.
Yeah.
This was another European team that you were overly confident about in the past 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Where did you go wrong with Splyce?
I still like Splyce. I know people are going to look at me like I'm crazy for saying that because they lost, but you know what? They lost to the best team in Europe. let's right now, Fnatic are the best team in Europe, despite what we saw at Rift Rivals, and Splyce lost to the best team in Europe. I can live with that. I don't think that that's a terrible loss. I think it sucks that they didn't grab a single map, but Game 2 was a lot closer than I think people give it credit for. Yeah, Fnatic got the 2 Barons, but they needed that Elder to close afterwards. Like, it wasn't like it was this definitive, Splyce was completely out of it from start to finish. I think the thing I was disappointed by was Wonder. I thought Wonder had been having a very strong season heading into this week. I think that what we saw is that because, Broxa put a little bit more focus there in this series, they were really able to snowball that lane, and Wonder did not necessarily catch up very well. Some of that, I think, is putting him on the Rumble. I'm not sure that was the ideal place to put him.
Gnar! Literally, just put him on Gnar! Like, that's his champion. Put him on Gnar. I don't understand this. I don't.
It makes no sense.
I don't.
Splyce literally banned Gnar in the second game. I don't understand. What is it about Wonder that has changed the way that he plays such that Gnar would not be something you'd want to prioritize? I felt like they overthought themselves, ultimately. I think that they had this idea of like, oh, we're going to go for these AoE comps. We're going to go for the scaling mid laners. We're going to go for, those kind of big team fight moments, and just not at all pay attention to, what really helps that team fights, guys? Gnar or other big, lane bullies. Even like a Kled would have been a better spot here, because at least Kled would have had a significant engage tool that could have gotten the rest of their team set up. As it was, like, Rumble can lock down some damage, but Fnatic's compositions were pretty mobile, pretty easily able to escape those kinds of situations. So ultimately, I felt like this is one of those things where Splyce failed on the drafting ends of things as well as the playing ends of things. Givas is a guy that I'm still going to be watching as a coach. I'm not sure how I feel about him yet. But yeah, look, Wonder didn't show up the way I expected him to. But I think he can. I think he certainly can. And I think that if you take him off of this Rumble pick, where he wasn't looking all that great, and put him back on the lane bullies that he's been so solid on this season, because his numbers are quite good. When you look at him compared to other top laners, even after such a terrible loss, I mean, he's still in the top half in basically every meaningful statistic. That's something that really stands to how consistent he's been in all of their other series. I think that certainly, he's not a perfect player, but I think he's, at this point to me, he's very much in an all-pro conversation. And I think that's where Splyce need him to be. They need him to be an all-pro caliber top laner. They need Senkux to be in the running for an all-pro spot, really focusing on mid laners that can kind of rotate well and really use that split push pressure. That's when they succeed. And they need Kabi and Nikki to be a lane that can hold up and really do a lot more to punish short-range AD carries like what the Tristana that Reckless brought in. I think that also was something where, if you're not dominating your lane as a Caitlyn versus Tristana in the early game, you done goofed. And Splyce done goofed. But you know what? Like all of these things I just mentioned, very fixable, very easily. You can change around your pick and bans just a little bit to strengthen these things. You could change around what lanes you want Trashy to prioritize early just a bit. And you can look at where the meta is and go a little bit, look less heavy on split push now, more heavy on the kind of team fighting that is created by lane pressure. Using like a 1-4 rather than a strict 1-3-1. And against G2 right now, I like them in this series. I think that they're a more consistent team than what G2 has been. I think that, yeah, you can say that Trashy hasn't been a great jungler, but neither has Trick this split.
This is true.
And when that doesn't happen, well, now you're getting to the point where it's going to be, okay, well, in the mid to late game, which team do you trust more right now? And right now, I trust Splyce's cohesion more. I think losing to the best team in the league doesn't take away all of the things I were liking about them before. So I like Splyce in this series. Unfortunately, I think that G2 are going to be the favorites because G2 won Europe 3 times in a row. And so I think the algorithm's going to be nice to it. So I said G2 -1/3.
Okay. I said G2 minus 150. Chase, would you like to guess who's right and who's wrong?
I mean,
It doesn't matter what you think because you are wrong, sir. G2 minus 277.
Wow.
Splyce is at plus 200.
Wow.
3 maps is
Okay.
at plus 115.
So Splyce plus 200 is an instant smart money bet. That's just happening.
If you say so.
Yeah, I do say so. They have a better record. They have a better win percentage. They're a better team. We just saw G2 go 1-5 at this tournament. They look bad. Splyce looked good, except for one series against Fnatic. They were 4-1 heading into a series against the best team in the league. G2's 3-3 and haven't played Unicorns of Love or H2K yet. Stop it. Just stop it. This is Splyce. Let's not overreact to one loss from Splyce. Let's react to a 2-5 record over the last 2 weeks for G2. Let's take that into account, ladies and gentlemen who are listening to this. I'm now putting on the defensive, despite the fact you might be agreeing with me at home. But yeah, no,
I don't think Splyce is as good as you think they are, but I've seen the rest of the odds, so
they're 4-2. Come on, what could they have done? Like they beat Unicorns of Love just a couple weeks ago. Like that happened. That's a real team that we value, and Splyce beat them in a 2-0. It was a very good series from them.
Okay.
Sorry, it's you, but it's also just the casinos are underestimating Splyce as well. I think that this
is you know,
we getting silly.
We take value where we can, and like I said, I've seen the rest of the bets, so I know that this is probably a pretty good value. Moving on, those Unicorns of Love versus Misfits.
Yeah.
Chase, I don't know what to think of this series because my heart is just like, yeah, Unicorns of Love are going to crush it. And my head goes, yeah, Unicorns of Love are probably going to crush it. So make the case for Misfits. Why should I be worried about these plucky little bunnies?
Okay, well, here's the couple big concerns for Unicorns of Love that Misfits can exploit after what we saw from Rift Rivals this week. Number one, I think Power of Evil is a better mid laner than Exile.
Okay.
Exile's laning has gone from bad to atrocious in a lot of spots. That's something that I think the Power of Evil can heavily exploit.
Yep, I will totally agree with you on that. Yep.
Number two, we're talking about the value of roaming supports and how that stood out at Rift Rivals. Ignar historically is that guy. He's probably one of the most roam-heavy supports if we go back to what we saw in the spring split. So if I'm Misfits and I watched Rift Rivals, what I said, I turned to Ignar and I said, hey, remember all those times you roamed in the spring? Can you do that again? And Ignar said yes. And that's going to be a factor here. I think that's definitely a value play. I think that Hans Sama has looked better in recent weeks. I don't think he looks as good as Samix. I think Samix is still the better AD carry right now. But Hans Sama tends to play things that win in lane more. I think that Samix we see go for hyperscalers like Twitch. Hans Sama is happy to play things like Varus and Xayah. So I think that in those situations, this could be a game in which Misfits wins the early game by a significant margin, and then it's up to the Unicorns of Love to get the big team fight that turns things around and gets them the victory. And ultimately, I expect Unicorns of Love to get the big team fight that turns things around and gets them the victory. But I do think that this is going to be something where the Unicorns of Love are going to have to be winning from behind. Right now, they have a 45.2 early game rating in Europe. It was significantly worse at Rift Rivals. Their early game has not been good. Misfits' early game has been very good. I think that that's something that specifically where Misfits' early game has been good and where Unicorns of Love's laning phase has been bad is going to be accentuated even more so. My problem is that I don't trust Misfits to close. This is the second week now where we're looking at Misfits and we're saying, yeah, they won, but or they didn't win, but they should have because they couldn't find the answer there. And I'm just, at some point, I have to just throw my hands up in the air and say, maybe it's not a communication problem. Maybe what we blamed in the off season and why we got rid of Cacao, he said, oh, he can't communicate. He can't figure out when to move on the map and get his teammates in the right place at the right time. Maybe did as well as this as anyone else could have, because Misfits just don't know what to do. So even when you're shot calling in a language that everyone understands, it's not working. That's, I think, the problem that we're seeing with Misfits that's pervaded. And I don't know if that's a Doku problem. I don't know if that's a problem with the main shot callers on that team. But until they prove to me that they know how to close out games, I'm not going to take them against a team that, while some of their strengths and weaknesses really look bad for them, we know that the Unicorns of Love are one of the best team fighting teams in Europe. We know they do a really great job with scaling compositions. We know that Chachi does a great job at engages. Unicorns of Love are going to win this series. It's just frustrating because Misfits should be in the running for this. Misfits should have a good shot at this if we were to only look on paper. But paper is a flimsy thing that turns clear when you rub grease on it. And the Unicorns of Love, Misfits, I should say, have been nothing but grease.
Context matters. And Chase, before you give us your line, I have to provide some context here. I almost got it exactly.
Oh, boy.
And if you don't get this, you can't catch up. So, all the pressure on you for this week. Where do you think the line is?
I had Unicorns of Love minus 155.
Nope, not even close. It's Unicorns of Love minus 208. I said
that's not that far
I
off.
said Unicorns of Love minus 200. I am closer. Ergo, I take the point. With it, I'm going to take the week with two games that probably don't matter all that much anyways left. Misfits are at plus 155.
What's 3 maps there?
And I'm pulling that up right now. 3 maps plus 105.
Yeah, I like that 3 maps bet.
I do too. I'm not going to lie.
Unicorns of Love are the better team. I overreacted to what I thought Rift Rivals was going to tell us. I thought that they were going to punish Unicorns of Love for going 3-6 overall at that event. Because those, when you lose 66% of your games in a week period of time, that usually brings the numbers down. I'm glad that Unicorn kept it where it should be. That was me playing myself. I think Unicorns of Love are the better team, but I think Misfits wins a map because they do have the significantly superior early game at this point in time, and I have the tools that I think that teams like TSM exploited in the Unicorns of Love, and I think that they're going to be able to pull it off once. I just don't trust them to do it twice because right now they haven't shown that macro understanding to do it. But
Absolutely.
Congratulations, that evens us up for the season, right? In terms of
that will take us to 6-6 on the season. But before we get there, we still have 2 more games this week. I just want to burn through them real quick because I don't think there's very much interest on my end. Maybe on your end. Rocket versus the Mysterious Monkeys.
Fast Monkey, Mysterious Monkeys. I'm in. Congratulations, guys. You got a victory. Kickus played Mordekaiser, and it won, despite the fact that that champion has 180 bugs, according to that wonderful Reddit poster. Shout out to him. He has been pushing that champion and been trying to get Riot to care about this champion. And maybe the combination of that post and Kickus bringing it out in week 5 will turn some more attention Mordekaiser's way, because he deserves it. But ultimately, this is a better team now, because now we have a strategy that they can build around and improve upon. And the big thing that I noticed about this, we talked about Cosq beating up on Nagne, but the fact of the matter is that Cosq looked, his Talia was pretty terrible. But outside of that, his LeBlanc in game 1 versus G2 was also not that bad. I think that what we're seeing now is a lot of the pressure that was really hurting Cosq early on because teams could focus on his lane is now being alleviated because Kickus is someone that teams worry about keeping down. They feel like you can't let him snowball because Kickus is someone who does so well when he has a gold lead and plays champions that can usually accelerate the game quite well if he has a gold lead. And because they're more spread out, Cosq has a little bit more time. Yuki has a little bit more time to scale up, which I think is huge for them as well. Amazing is there. He's fine. He's not bad. I was afraid he was going to be bad when he came back. He's fine. I don't think he's great. I don't think he's nearly as good as he thinks he is. But I think he's a fine player. He's holding up the fort quite nicely in that regard. So you know, Mysterious Monkeys are a more interesting team than they were 3 weeks ago.
Yes.
I think that this is a team that will continue to improve. And as a Rocket fan, I'm a little scared of this series. Got to be honest with you. I don't know. Why am I supposed to believe that Rocket are going to just take this series? I thought they were just going to take the Vitality series, and look what happened. And why did it happen? Oh, right, because it came down to a really good solo laner, specifically in the top lane, that just crushed. And, you know, I don't know how Coscue's Corki goes. He hasn't actually played, I don't think, any of the kind of 80 carry style mid laners. But are we sure he can't do it? I don't know. I don't know anymore, man. I think that's probably the most damning statement I could make on Rocket is I'm not sure we're going to be the Mysterious Monkeys. I just don't know anymore. This is going to be...
You guys might be the second worst team in the LCS, actually. And you're going to avoid relegation because the worst team is in your group.
Well, that's what we're going to find out this week. Rocket, this is your pride on the line. If you want to say that you are not the second worst team in the league, and that Group A is not a pile of sadness compared to what Group B is doing right now, you got to take this one. This is a must-win. I'm going to say it's a must-win. If you don't win this, I better be hearing that 2 new players have signed on the roster next week when we're talking about this team on the podcast. Go sign Llama Bear. He's available, turns out. Come on. Just...
I don't think Pride Stalker's the problem.
He's not the solution.
He might not be the solution, but he's not the problem they have currently. The problem is that their mid laner and top laner can play 2 champions apiece.
1-8-7 last week. He does nothing to get those guys in a better spot. But yeah, no, Betsy's the ultimate problem.
Yeah, but you've seen enough of Betsy to know this isn't the guy. That's the player that needs to be replaced. I would still give the top laner, I'd still give him a little bit of a chance to try and figure things out.
Betsy needs to be replaced.
Betsy has proven he's not the guy.
That just needs to happen.
That hurts, but yeah, that's...
Pride Stalker needs to prove to me that he can at least do it against Amazing. You got to be a better jungler than Amazing at this point in Amazing's career. I don't think that's setting the bar.
Llama Bear wasn't a better jungler than Amazing. Ooh, bang! Boom shakalaka. Where do you think the line is on this one?
I said Rocket minus 175.
I said Rocket minus 180. It's Rocket minus 227.
Okay.
Mysterious Monkeys are at plus 170.
This is just not my day. That's what I'm learning here.
It's really not.
It's almost like
It's really not.
it's reflecting this atrocity from Rift Rivals that I just had to watch, where now my European understanding, everything I believed heading into Rift Rivals, is falling apart.
You finally woken up from Inception?
I don't know, man. Let's just go to this last game. This is getting depressing. Let's just move on.
Mysterious Monkeys plus 170.
That's fair.
I like that. That's some good value there.
That's
But
some
yes,
yeah.
the last game, Fnatic versus Vitality. Chase, do you want to torture yourself any further? Do you want to make any bold predictions about this series? Any thoughts, concerns, comments, questions?
Hey, Fnatic, what have you learned from Rift Rivals? I want you to show me this is not enough to just overpower Vitality. We know you can overpower Vitality. We know you can overpower most teams in Europe. We've seen that. Is Reckless going to start playing champions with some attack range so that he's not constantly putting himself in a tough position that better teams will exploit in the bot lane? Are we going to see Broxa return to some of the intelligent jungling paths to get him in the first place? Are you going to fix your vision issues? Are you going to fix the dragon issues? Execute the basics. That's all I want to see from you guys. Get the basics down and prove that you understand them, prove that you understand how best to use them, and then we can talk about where you guys rank, as far as some of the best teams in Europe. I said going into Rift Rivals that I thought this Fnatic team was playing as well as we had seen a European team play heading, compared, it's since the 2015 summer Fnatic. I thought it was the best Fnatic roster since then. I don't think that anymore. I think we've learned that this team has clear flaws. So are you going to fix them, Or are you going to rely on the fact that you don't need to because you're Fnatic and you should be good enough to win this series? I think we're going to learn a lot about the attitude of where this team stands and ultimately the mindset that they're going to have heading into the playoffs from this week. I want to see a strong performance where they get all of the basics well executed, clean, crisp. Make it happen.
Chase, I want to remind you of the first half of last split where they couldn't play the short range, 80 carries, the playmaking carries that Reckless has, been playing in the summer. The Kennen, the Twitch.
He didn't get to pick them.
Tristana.
Because Nico the Pico's the worst coach in the league.
Well, then he picked them in the second half of the split. The problem is, if they aren't good, if they're bad champions to play in the meta, can he continue to pick them? And if he can't, is he good at anything else?
Gotta retire the Kennen pick. I don't think Twitch is a bad pick right now.
I think Twitch is a good pick right now, and I think Tristana is a good pick right now. But
Tristana's okay. But I need to see more from him. I want him to go back to actual lane bullies. If you're the best AD carry in the league, and I think that you are, you've got to be able to win lane on stuff like Caitlyn. Yeah, you need to. You need to play
champions
Caitlyn,
that he's never been great at.
You need to play Ashe. I don't care.
Champions
First of all,
he's never been great at.
He played well on those champions last split. Let's be clear, even with the first half of the split going as poorly as it did, this is a team where Reckless was so far and above the best statistical player in the AD carry position. He was fine on those champions. That's not the problem. The problem was that he wasn't able to turn that into victories because the rest of the team was uncoordinated. They didn't have clear ways to play around him. I think mechanically he should be able to do it. I'm less worried about that than you, but I want to see you guys do it and do it with that execution. I'm going to keep emphasizing. It's not enough to just be good at it. I know Reckless that you're good at it. You have to be able to be good at it and have your teammates be good at following up on it, and then you all be good at following that up with objectives and have all of those plays be set up because you're good at creating vision for yourself. Like, that's what I need to see. More than individual champions. I want to see the bit by bit, step by step, this is what we do to be a good League of Legends.
Not gonna happen. Fnatic's been living on this Reckless carry crutch. They've been living and dying by this play style crutch.
Caps is a really good League of Legends player.
Caps was a really good League of Legends player last spring. He was great last split too. I think the play style and the crutch. I think the play style's been a crutch.
6-1. They still did very well in Europe. I understand that Europe did not look good in Rift Rivals, but I don't want to pretend like Fnatic did nothing of value in the entire first half of the split, and we can just write all of that off. I think they're still a very good team.
No,
I think they had a very bad tournament, but I'm less doomsday than you. I think that it's very possible that they come out and fix those execution problems. I think they're smart enough to do it, and I think the biggest problem they had last split, Nico the Pico, is not there. They're not going to pick really dumb drafts that leave them with very few options when they actually need to close games.
This is fair. This is a fair point. My only counter is Dylan Falco has not been he's not been able to stay on one team for long. He's been bouncing around quite a bit. So I don't know if he's necessarily this massive upgrade either. With that said, what do you think the line is for this series? Let's close out the week here strong, Chase. Come on.
I had Fnatic minus 400.
You are going to get this one because I said Fnatic minus 375. It is Fnatic minus 666. So you are going to take a point here, but it doesn't matter because at the end of the week it is 5-2. I take the point for this week. That puts me at 6-6. That puts us at 6-6, Chase. And I gotta say, the belt is looking very comfortable here. I don't know. I don't know if she wants to leave. I think she wants to stay here. I think she's given me a new lease on life and a new lease in this game. But let's get some smart money bets because I want to make some money back. I don't like being in the red. That's not something I'm proud of. So we said Splyce over G2 at minus 200. I think that was pretty good value.
Yes.
You were the one that kind of hopped on that train.
Mysterious Monkeys plus 170 over Rocket.
Yep, that was the next one that I was going to go with. I like that one as well. And third, where are you seeing?
Three maps for Misfits and Unicorns of Love at plus 105.
That works for me as well. There we go. 3 very quick, easy, smart money bets. We have Splyce beating G2 at plus 200. We have Unicorns of Love versus Misfits going to 3 maps at plus 105. And we have Roccat versus Mysterious Monkeys. Mysterious Monkeys going over Roccat at plus 170. And I hope you guys go over with this podcast. You guys can follow us along on YouTube, on SoundCloud, on iTunes. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at Rough Drafts Pod. You can follow the champion and the North American, champions as well at Ceades _LOL. Chase, where can they find you if they want some pretty statistics?
Look, if you want to talk to me about anything I said on the show today, you can find me at RedShirtKing. I think that I think the numbers did not lead us astray. I think the play style and the eye test led us astray, or led me astray, I should say. Because you got your credit for backing North America. But you know what, Europe? I'm going to repeat what I said to you, and kind of echo the mentality that Winston Churchill kind of brought to Europe and the Allies in World War II, which is that we will not give up. We will never surrender. We will not go quietly into the night. We are a strong region, a region with a great history behind us, with great talent at our fingertips, and we just have to fall back on the things that made us great. And we can do that. This is a region that can do that. And just like Europe, I'm telling you, I'm going to surge back in this competition. It's going to happen. I believe and I'm confident in our ability in the long run to make that happen. So let's hang in there, guys. Let's enjoy a fun week of games this week. Let's see if we can make that happen. And
if all else fails, Chase, they could just become Danish, and they could join the United States of America as our 51st state. And we get to talk about America and North America tomorrow. So come back for that. The party doesn't stop. The championship parade keeps on rolling. So until then, goodbye, Internet.
You can follow the Rough Drafts Podcast on all your favorite social media sites. Twitter at Rough Drafts Pod, Facebook.com/Rough Drafts Pod, SoundCloud.com/Esports Rough Drafts, YouTube.com/Rough Drafts Podcast, as well as on iTunes by searching for the Rough Drafts Podcast. The Rough Drafts Podcast is supported by our lovely Patreons at Patreon.com/Rough Drafts Pod, and by viewers like you. Thanks for listening, and goodbye, Internet.